Hi, it's Mike. I'm the Sewing Salesman from QT Fabrics. Do you have wonky panels and you don't know what to do with them? Well, I've got a few tips for you. First of all, the panel was probably printed correctly because today's printing machines are pretty high tech and they're pretty exact. But then in the finishing process, they might get pulled a little out of shape. And then definitely in the double and roll process where the fabric's folded in half and rolled onto the bolt on a machine, it definitely gets pulled out, especially along that fold. So QT Fabrics decided a little while ago to change from the regular 60-60 square, which is 60 threads by 60 threads per square inch that we had been using and pretty much everybody else uses, to a 75-75 square, 75 threads by 75 threads per square inch. It's a much tighter weave, and so the fabric doesn't get pulled out of shape during the process. Also, we're having our fabric hand double and roll so that the machine doesn't pull them out of shape. So our panels now are much less wonky than they used to be. But if you still end up with a wonky panel, how do you get it back into shape? Well, cotton, if it was printed right, cotton can go back into shape. You just have to get it hot and wet and pull it back into shape and let it cool. So that's called blocking. Put your panel on an ironing board or a table or something and get it nice and wet, and then iron it as square as you can and push and pull and get it all back how you want it, and then let it cool. Hold it in place. Maybe you can weight it in place or just leave it and let it cool. And that should help. That should work. If you can't get it back into place doing that, try completely getting your fabric wet. Soak it in water, get it completely wet, and then lay it out and get it all square and let it dry or iron it dry. And you should be able to get it back into shape with that. If that still doesn't work, you can rewrite the pattern. So some patterns have you cut exactly from the line to the line on the panel. It'll have you cut exactly the width of it right on the line. And if the panel's wonky and you're trying to cut on the line, then how do you sew it into a square quilt? Well, these blocks that I was using from one of our previous collections were wonky. Some of them were wonky. And so what I did was I rewrote the pattern. I basically made these coping strips. Most patterns have coping strips, which are just an extra border around the block or the panel when you cut it. So I made these extra big. I sewed the block right on the little line, so it was right on the edge of the block, which wasn't square, and then laid down a square ruler when I was all done and cut it out into a perfect square. So a quick rewrite of the pattern, same with a panel. Also, some pattern makers have kind of clued in and are making patterns that don't make you cut right to the line, but they'll have you cut somewhere in between. So if the panel's wonky, then you've got lots of room to cut. And so look for those patterns. Those are a lot easier to make. Also, some of our fabric designers are starting to make frameless blocks and panels so that you can just lay a square ruler down and you've got lots of room to cut around. And if this block was a little wonky, these aren't. But if they were, it'd be easy to cut a square around that that's bigger. So that's how you can fix your panels and get them back into squares so they'll look beautiful in your quilt. Talk to you next time.